let's talk about hay. Today we're going to talk about how you as a consumer can quickly and easily tell if the hay that you're getting is quality hay or if maybe you should try to find some new hay. Now, I'm only talking about grass hays really. Some of this can apply to legume hays, but since legume hays are kind of more leafy in appearance, some of this might not apply to that. So I'm mainly focusing on grass hay because I have guinea pigs and I feed them Timothy hay. There's obviously a lot of scientific ways to tell the quality of hay, but you as a consumer probably don't have access to a lot of that information, and even so, every batch is going to be a little different, even from the same company. It's going to change with the seasons, things like that. So, as a consumer, there are some things that you can look at to just kind of tell in just a few seconds the quality of your hay. We're not going to discuss specific nutritional needs, like different species have different types of needs for the maturity of the hay, or how stocky the hay is, how leafy it is, things like that. We're solely talking about just grass hay in general and looking at it and just telling, is this good quality hay that I would want to feed to my animal? Or maybe should I stay away from this batch? So we're going to use a few of our senses to evaluate the hay. We're going to start with looking at it. The first thing you're going to notice, are you going to jump on? The first thing you're going to notice is the color. So you want it to be green. You don't want it to be all yellow. That's straw, not hay. You want it to be fairly green. There's going to be some yellower bits. It's totally normal. Ideally, you don't want a lot of brown bits. It's okay if there's a couple, but you don't want a ton. So as you can see, kind of from far away, it lets you kind of see the whole color of this. And as you can tell, it's like a greenish yellow. That's good. Generally, the greener, the better. It usually means it's fresher. It usually means that it was stored better. And it's going to have better nutrition. Wait, you cannot jump off this. This is way too high to jump from. What are you doing? You want to sit in a cuddle cup instead? Another thing you're going to want to look for is that there's not a bunch of random stuff in it. Obviously, bugs are no-no. Any kind of mold or fungus. There also might be other plants in it. So if there were a bunch of random plants growing on the farm, but they're claiming it's Timothy hay, what's this other stuff? Is it safe? Is it toxic? You don't know. You want to just see the Timothy hay or the whatever kind of hay you're getting, and that's it. You don't want other plants. You don't want animals. Definitely anything like that.
Here's a close-up of some good hay. So as you can see, it's nice and green. It looks really consistent. You see the hay and the seed heads, and that's it. It's all the same type of hay. This is really beautiful, good quality hay right here. As compared to this hay, it's not awful. As you can see, there's a lot of green parts, but there's definitely some clear brown parts. Honestly, my piggies personally just wouldn't touch it, so it wouldn't be a big deal, but what a huge waste of money. And also, that's a red flag in general. Does that mean it was stored badly? Does that mean it wasn't cared for well? Things like that. Now, at first glance, this hay may look very similar to the last hay that we just looked at, but if you look carefully, it looks like there's some other random types of plants that you may not be able to identify. And why are they in your hay? There's other little random pieces of who knows what, in addition to having a similar amount of brown bits as the last hay, so I would definitely not want to feed this hay or spend my money on it. Now, this hay is super bad. If someone tried to sell this to you, you should be offended. This, I don't think, was actually sold. I think this is just a random crop of just some plants that were in a field. But as you can tell, there's a bunch of different types of plants. There's some yellow, some brown, some green, some huge plant that clearly is nothing. There's some random orange things. I don't know what it is, but it is not going to be fed to my pets. But maybe you're buying your hay in bale form. Well, you can definitely look at that too. So very similar ideas. All of the same things we discussed apply to bales. You can tell that this bale is nice and green. It looks like it's all the uniform same type of hay. This is a really beautiful bale of hay. However, similarly to some of the bad hays we looked at, this hay clearly has a lot of yellowing. It has a bunch of random plants. It's probably been sitting here forever, and that's why all the plants are growing. You obviously wouldn't want to feed this to your pets. And adding on one thing that you can look at, which is specific to bales, is how it was baled or how it was put together. So you want it to be really uniform. You want it to be really consistent. You don't want to see wrinkles. If it's a circle bale, you want it to have been really tightly spiraled. Similarly, if it were a rectangle, you'd want it to be very tightly packed. You maybe see some layers, but that's it. It all looks very uniform and, again, very beautiful. But when you look at these bales here, you don't see that. So the first red flag you can tell right off the bat is the consistency. There is brown hay along the edges, which means that it was either baled badly or it was maybe left to sit out in the hot sun after it was baled, so it's clearly not fresh anymore. Also, look at those kind of wrinkles in the bale. It looks like it wasn't very tightly spiraled up, right? It should just look like circles, not like a weird kind of flowery shape like you can see. So it was baled too loosely, and this could mean that, you know, the heat's not going to be as consistent. The inside could get hotter. It could let bugs in. It could get moldy, things like that you definitely don't want in your hay either.
The next thing is the feel of the hay. So it should be somewhat flexible. So you should be able to take a piece of hay and bend it without it completely breaking in half. It's okay if it folds or whatever, but if it were to just snap in half when you just from bending it, then that would mean it is more like straw. Probably a piece like that is also going to look yellower, right? So that's not great quality hay. Please don't eat my notes, baby. The next thing is smell. So I actually kind of really like the smell of the hay, even though I'm unfortunately allergic, but it should smell sweet. It should not smell sour. You do not want it to smell sour. That means that it maybe got too moist or something during the storing process and has started to kind of ferment. That's not what we're looking. This is not silage, this is hay. So you want it to be sweet, not sour. When you get one good batch, just kind of, you know, when you open the bag, take a sniff. You want it to be remember what that smells like. Then in the future, you can be like, oh, this kind of smells a little off. When you get one good batch, because if it smells drastically different, it could be something going on there. Lastly, let's talk about taste. So, just kidding. I'm not going to taste it, but my piggies are going to taste it. They're going to prefer good quality hay. So one time I ran out of hay, not expecting it. My next order still had a day or two to come in. And so I had to go to the store and get just whatever hay I could because these guys have to have all their hay. And it was not great. It was a different brand. It was just what I could find at the moment. I could tell just by looking at it that it wasn't good. It had like a lot of dead pieces and things like that. And the piggies were not super interested. At first they were like, what is this? Of course they realized they had to eat it because that's what they had. But then when I got in the good hay that I usually get, I offered that to them and they just immediately stopped eating the other hay. They were just like, this is way better. I'm going to eat this instead. So let your piggies taste it and decide. And if you weren't really sure and you wanted to do like a legitimate kind of which one do you prefer, just put 2 piles of hay down, one of one type, one of another type, and just see what they eat more. You know, they'll probably try them each, and then whichever one disappears first, whichever one they keep going back to, whichever one they look happy to eat, obviously that's the one they prefer, and that's the one you should get. Can you tell them to smash the like button? Like I said, I speak piggy, and he just said to smash the like button. Maple, you shook my tripod. Actually, hindgun. Maple, don't eat my tripod. What is happening?